Earlier, I spoke with William Fallon, the former U.S. commander in Iraq and Afghanistan. I asked him about Obama's proposal of reaching out to what he called moderate elements of the Taliban and whether he thought it was a constructive approach.
Well, I think that this discussion is just a slice of what's going to have to be a very comprehensive plan to try to stabilize this country and improve the security situation and move forward. And my experience in the past, both in Afghanistan and in Iraq, tells me that finding some way to connect with those who are causing the trouble is really important. So, for example, in Iraq, over a period of time, we developed in various ways a dialogue with some of those folks that were opposed to us and demonstrating by their actions that they weren't particularly interested. But I think first things first here, if there's going to be any discussion among the people, I think that one of the prime actors here ought to be the government of Afghanistan, President Karzai and his people. After all, this is their country, and they've actually, I know in the past, considered this. And it seems to me that that ought to be a good place to start. As far as our willingness to entertain this, to support some kind of a dialogue, it makes sense to me that I would expect that not all the people that are alleged to be in opposition to what we're trying to do here are in fact diametrically opposed to the outcomes that we seek. And so trying to sort out those who are really against us from those who are demonstrating unhappiness for various reasons is important.
Does the key, though, lie with the Afghan government, with Hamid Karzai's government, or with the Taliban itself? I mean, how do you convince them to speak with you? Their leadership is saying that it doesn't make sense to speak about moderate and radical elements within the group. They say if you mean moderate, to mean moderate by those who sit at home and simply aren't fighting, then it is pointless to talk about them, that they're not the ones who hold the key.
Well, I wouldn't agree with most of that. First of all, the definition of who's who, moderates or radical or something, I think is probably not appropriate. Again, from
but that's the term that was used by the Obama administration. They're the ones who said that they would speak only with the moderate elements.
Yeah, well, I think probably there may have been some person that said that. Again, the administration doesn't speak. You have people who speak for it, and I'm not sure who may have said what. But
it was President Obama himself. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it was President Obama himself in a recent interview that he gave. He said he would be ready to engage with moderate elements of the Taliban. You know the region extremely well. Is it pointless to talk about moderate and radical elements within the Taliban?
Well, I don't think it's pointless at all to try and engage this population to sort out who's interested and could be convinced to be helpful and to try to identify those that are not likely to help, and then you deal with each in different ways. It seems to me it makes all the sense in the world.
But there has been a lot of criticism, though, for this administration and the previous one, that 7 years into this invasion, the United States doesn't seem to have a clear idea of what its objectives are and how to achieve them. Does this new talk about engaging in a dialogue with the Taliban suggest desperation on the part of this administration?
I doubt it. Not at all. And anybody who thinks that the situation today is at all reminiscent of the situation 6 or 7 years ago, I think isn't really paying much attention. This thing has changed dramatically over a period of time, as all these situations do. But any discussion with the Taliban or those who purport to be the Taliban, seems to me, is but one tiny slice of what needs to be a very major effort to try to provide security and stability and a future for this country. And so to focus on this as the be-all and the end-all, or as the one thing that's going to change events or maybe not change them, I think is very, very short-sighted. You need a big kit bag to deal with these problems, and although I want to be very careful about drawing too many parallels with Iraq, the situation there, the improvement of stability, was a result of many factors that were orchestrated together, and some that fortuitously came together. And so in the big picture, the big scheme of things, I would think this is basically a similar approach we're going to have to take to Afghanistan. I don't know what exactly will be a major factor in turning the tide, assuming we can get it turned, to get it to be much more stable than it's certainly been lately. But I think we ought to be wide open to any and all avenues that might be fruitful here. And to jump on one and vilify it and say, well, this isn't going to work or this is stupid, or seems to me to be not productive at all.
But when would you say that the war would be won? I mean, at what stage? Is there a clear idea? When democracy is restored, when you've won hearts and minds, when you've gotten rid of the Taliban, what is the end game?
Well, the end game is probably another bad choice of words. We want stability and security. It's not going to be black or white. It's not going to be bad and then good.
It sounds terribly vague, though.
It takes time.
It sounds vague. It doesn't sound like. It sounds terribly vague. It doesn't sound as precise.
Oh, is that right?
Policy
well,
objective.
This is terribly complex business. I'm sorry. It doesn't lend itself to just snap your finger and make it all better. There's no panacea here. This requires hard work. It requires a lot of effort. It requires people working hard together. And it requires strong cooperation between the Afghan government, the people, and those that are trying to help. And any idea that this is suddenly going to be turned around, or we're going to give it a week or a month or something, and then suddenly it's going to be good or not, I think it's just not very realistic thinking. So it may sound good in sound bites, but that's not the way things work in the world.
Let me ask you about Iraq. With so much focus now on Afghanistan, the Obama administration clearly having decided that the priority will be Afghanistan and not Iraq, which is relegated to a secondary position, even though there have been recent deadly attacks in that country. Is that the wise approach, or is Obama in danger of making the same mistake that Bush made, this time in reverse?
I'd have to disagree with the way you phrased this. I don't know that anybody has said that Iraq is now the secondary issue. There's a very clear message that it seems to me that the administration wants to do more in Afghanistan and recognizes the need for that. But I don't think anybody's decided to forget about Iraq. There are very clear trends underway, and certainly the number one thing is vastly improved security and stability. There is a significant effort that is well underway now to turn over security responsibility in most of the country to the Iraqis, and the adjunct to that is that our troops will continue to come out of there in large numbers, and I think that's well underway.